Hey everybody, this is Mr. Ainsworth, and we're getting to, believe it or not, our third review here of Chapter 8 on the concepts that we've studied. So get your red pens out, get your calculator out. We're going to be using the TID4 when we do some trig. And so red pens and calculator out, ready to go. So here we go. You have to remember that when you go from leg to hypotenuse on the 45, 45, 90, you got to multiply by rad 2. All right, so u is equal to 7 times rad 2. Well, that's just 7 rad 2, right? That's all she wrote. Okay, it's 7 rad 2. So you get 7 rad 2 here. The other thing you need to know is that these triangles are isosceles. All right, that means we have two congruent legs. So these are the same. So v is 7. Okay, it's that simple. So v equals 7. So the hypotenuse is longer, so we multiply by rad 2, but the two legs are congruent. So if you know one leg, you know the other one. All right, the same thing right here. You want to multiply by root 2. All right, and that's pretty simple to do. U is equal to 8 rad 2. V is the same as the other leg, so this is length 8, so V is 8. That's all there is to it. All right, let's move on to the 30, 60, 90. So 30-degree angle here. Opposite of that angle is the shortest side. See if I can spell short. Okay, is equal to the half the hypotenuse. This is the hypotenuse right here. It's the longest side, so I have to divide it by 2. All right, to get to the short side. So y is equal to 2 root 3 divided by 2, which is root 3. So this side's root 3. And then I have to multiply it by root 3 to get to the medium length side. All right, and so x here is root 3 times root 3, or 3. And it gives you root 9, but everybody knows that that's just 3. So this side length is 3. Okay, same thing here, but this one's a little bit different. Here we got the medium length side. Opposite of the 30-degree angle is the short side. And then we got the hypotenuse. So on this one here, what we need to do first is divide, because we're getting shorter, by root 3. So I got to do some side work. So V is equal to 5 divided by rad 3. Then I rationalize. And I get 5 rad 3 up top, divided by root 9. So end result, 5 root 3 divided by 3. And since you can't divide a root by a non-root, you can't simplify this any further. So I'm going to put 5 rad 3 here. And then to get to the hypotenuse is equal to 2 times the short, twice as big, so you multiply by 2. So u is equal to 2 times 5 rad 3 over 3, and that's 10 rad 3 divided by 3, because you just simply multiply. So it's 10 root 3 over 3. That's all there is to it. All right, so let's keep practicing. You got a medium length side here, got a short side here. So to go from medium to short, you divide by root 3. So here V is 3 rad 3 divided by rad 3, which is just 3. Got to double it to get to the hypotenuse. It's twice. Hypotenuse is 2 times the short. Got to memorize that, so times 2. Everybody should know that 3 times 2 is 6. So U is 6. Done. Okay, over here we've got, let me see, the hypotenuse is here. Opposite of the 30 degrees is short side. You got a medium length side here. And once again, 3 times in a row, go from medium to short, you divide by root 3. So y is equal to 9 divided by rad 3, but you got to rationalize that. And you get 9 root 3 divided by root 9, which is 9 root 3 divided by 3. Okay, you divide the numbers that are not being rooted. 9 divided by 3 is just 3, so my y value is 3 root 3. So this right here, the short side, is 3 root 3, and to double it, to get to the hypotenuse, it's equal to 2 times the short. It's twice as long. All right? So x, the hypotenuse here, is equal to 2 times my short side, 3 root 3, gives me 6 root 3. So right here is 6 root 3. Keep on using the same methods. Have your concept sheet out to the side and just do the same thing. All right? On the 45, 45, 90, to go from hypotenuse to a leg, you're divided by something, in this case root 2. So y is equal to 2 divided by rad 2, but you got to rationalize. You get 2 root 2 divided by root 4, and that's 2 root 2 divided by 2, because again, you got to simplify. Okay, simplify again, you get rad 2. So that's rad 2 and that's rad 2. Why? Because it's isosceles, as I said previously. Okay? All these 45, 45, 90s are isosceles. All right, let's do the same thing. Divide by rad 2. So n equals m equals 2 rad 5 divided by rad 2. Got to rationalize. Multiply the roots. So you get 2 rad 10. Multiply the roots. All right, you get rad 4 here. That's equal to 2 rad 10 divided by 2. Simplify. So n and m are both root 10. So that's a square root of 10 and that's a square root of 10 here. They're both root 10. Now remember, this is a video now, okay? So if I go too fast, use the rewind button and pause and play, rewind, and listen to it again. All right? Take notes, rewind it, listen to it again. Listen 2-3 times until you get it. And then practice. Print off another copy and practice this, because it's one thing watching me, it's another thing doing it on your own. Okay, so here we go. We got a 30, 60, 90 here, and opposite of the 30-degree angle is a short side. So the question is how do we get from short side to the hypotenuse here? Well, I know the hypotenuse on the 30, 60, 90 is always 2 times as long, so this is 18 root 6. You've got to double it. 2 times the short side is the hypotenuse. Now, to get from hypotenuse to the leg on the 45, 45, 90, I would divide it by root 2. So x should be equal to 18 root 6 divided by root 2. Now you're allowed to divide roots. A root divided by a root is a root. So this is the root of, or 18 times, let me see, 6 divided by 2 is 3, so times root 3. Divide and simplify the roots. I'm talking about right here. Okay? Now on this one here, we're on the 45, 45, 90, so you start off with a leg and go to hypotenuse, so you got to multiply by rad 2. So this is 8 rad 2. And to go from medium to short, I got to divide it. So I got to take 8 rad 2 and divide it by root 3 because I'm getting shorter. Then I got to rationalize, and I get 8 root 6 because you got to multiply here, divided by root 9, and that's 8 root 6 divided by 3 because root 9 is just 3. So 8 root 6 divided by 3. Okay? All right. All right, now for some Pythagorean theorem. Okay, whenever you're given 2 sides and you're trying to find the third side, this is no Triggs, it's the Pythagorean theorem. Leg squared plus leg squared is equal to hypotenuse squared. Okay, so you got legs here, the 2 shorter sides adjacent to the right angle, and you got the longest side, the hypotenuse, is opposite of the right angle. So when you set this up, you start with the legs. So x squared plus 5 squared is equal to 15 squared. And you got x squared plus 25 is equal to 225. Subtract 25. You got x squared is equal to 200. And then, so that means x is equal to the square root of 200, which is equal to the square root of 100 times root 2. You got to split the root. All right, and that's equal to 10 rad 2. So 10 rad 2 here. Okay, on the next one, you've got the legs here. You got hypotenuse up here. So you start with the legs. Take the square root of 5 and square it. Take the other leg, root 13, square it, and you get that equal to the hypotenuse squared, which is x squared. Now on this one, the square cancels out the root, which gives you 5. The square cancels out the root, which gives you 13, and you get that equal to x squared. That's 18, and that's equal to x squared. And you square root, and then you split the root again. So root 9 times root 2 gives you 3 rad 2. Always simplify the root. All right, that's what it means right here in simplest radical form. All right, now for some trig. Okay, so now you first label. So here's your angle, and the side next to the angle is called the adjacent side. Opposite of the right angle is called the hypotenuse. All right, let's write down SOHCAHTOA. All right, here we go. So adjacent and hypotenuse, that's a cosine function. So cosine of my angle is equal to x divided by 15. That's my setup. My process is that I'm going to multiply both sides by 15, excuse me. And my exact answer is 15 times the cosine of 15 degrees is equal to x. And then you kick in your calculator here, you go 15 times the cosine of 15 degrees, and you get about 14.49. So 14.49 degrees. Excuse me, it's not an angle. So 14.49. It's a side length. Now, my answer should be a little bit less than 15 because the hypotenuse is the longest side. And I got a number less than 15, which is good. Okay. Now, in the next one, 14, I'm expecting the hypotenuse to be longer than 17 because this is the opposite side and it's a leg, and legs are always smaller than a hypotenuse. So my answer has to be bigger than 17, whatever it may be. But this is a sine function, so I'm going to take the sine of 49 degrees and set that equal to the opposite side, 17, divided by the hypotenuse. That's my setup, opposite divided by hypotenuse. I'm going to clear the fractions to get the variable out of the denominator. So I got x times the sine of 49 degrees is equal to 17. Step 2, I divide both sides by the sine of 49 degrees. Simplify. Anything divided by itself is 1 right here. And I get x is equal to 17 divided by the sine of 49. Kick in my calculator when I need to. So I take 17 divided by the sine of 49 degrees, 22.53. So 22.53. And I expected a number bigger than 17, and 22.5 is bigger than 17, so my answer makes sense. Now, when you're trying to find angles, this always involves the inverse. This one involves, okay, the inverse function. All right, so here we go. I first label opposite side, adjacent side, and again, that's a cosine function. So cosine is adjacent divided by hypotenuse. So cosine of my angle is equal to 14 divided by 19. Now I take the inverse cosine on both sides. There it is right there. That's the notation of the inverse cosine of 14/19. The functions cancel, and I get this, and that's a calculator problem. So we get the inverse cosine, so you go second cosine to get the inverse. And 14 divided by 19. I didn't do that correctly. Inverse cosine of 14 divided by 19. You got to press the right buttons, right? Okay, which is 42.54 degrees. So 42.54 degrees. All right, so what we need to do is we need to take the inverse cosine of both sides. That's the inverse cosine, this notation right here. I'm talking about here and here, inverse cosine. That's what you guys got to do. Otherwise, your answer aren't going to make sense. All right, next one, you got adjacent side and you got hypotenuse. Whoa, you know what I just noticed here? This is totally wrong. Opposite and adjacent, that's the tangent function. Scratch that. Holy smoke, I'm going to have to redo this whole thing. Okay, you guys, it's been a long day. Opposite and adjacent is not the cosine function, it is the tangent function. Yikes. Okay, so let me redo this, okay? The tangent is the opposite divided by adjacent. So the tangent of my angle is equal to the 14 opposite side divided by adjacent side 19. And I don't want to take the inverse cosine, I want to take the inverse tangent. Sorry, forgive me, but at least I caught my mistake, I just wasn't thinking clearly. So I'm going to take the inverse tangent of both sides. So here we go, inverse tangent of tangent x, and that's equal to the inverse tangent of my ratio 14/19. Now it's looking good. Now notice that I took the inverse tangent of both sides. Now the inverse tangent of tangent x gives you x, and I got to write down whatever this is. So I got to redo my calculator, redo this here. I got to take the inverse tangent of 14/19 and do it correctly, 36.38 degrees. So 36.38 degrees because it's an angle. Whew. Okay, now that may happen to you, and if it does, check your work like I did, and I noticed that I wrote down the wrong function. I don't know why, but I did. But I obviously checked my work when I was done and realized that I wrote down the wrong function, so I fixed it. And that may happen to you guys on a test. That's why it's so important to go back and make sure you don't make any silly mistakes like I did. Okay, now this one's cosine. Okay, adjacent divided by hypotenuse is a cosine. So here, this one's cosine x is equal to adjacent 17 divided by hypotenuse 50. And in this case, I want to take the inverse cosine of both sides. So let me do that. So notice that I took the inverse cosine of both sides here. Once again, the inverse cosine cancels out cosine, giving you the angle, and then becomes a calculator problem at that point. There we go. So the inverse cosine of 17/50 is about 70.12 degrees. So 70.12 degrees. Okay, it looks like a pretty good size angle, and I got a good answer. Okay, because now I'm checking my work and I'm not making any silly mistakes. All right, so what I did was right here is I took the inverse cosine of both sides. All right, last but not least, let's write some ratios down, okay? So, ka, toi, those are the definitions. Now the tangent of angle A is right here. Okay, opposite of A is 21. Adjacent is 20. Hypotenuse is 29. So the tangent of it is opposite divided by adjacent, 21 divided by 20. Okay, sine is opposite of C. No, sine of C. Here's C. Opposite of C is 14. Hypotenuse is 50. So the sine of C is opposite 14 divided by 50, which is 7/25. Okay, cosine of Z. Here's Z. I don't want to go opposite. I want to go adjacent. So adjacent is here. Adjacent to the angle is 32. Hypotenuse is 40. Cosine is adjacent divided by hypotenuse, so 32/40. Divide both by 8, and you get 4/5. Okay, simplify your fractions. X now, here's X. Tangent is opposite, 36, divided by adjacent. Okay, so this is equal to 36 divided by 27. Divide both by 9, and you get 4/3. Always simplify your fractions. Okay, now remember, this is a video, so if you guys need to rewind and listen to it, cool. Print off another copy and practice. Print another copy. Okay. And do a lot of practice, because watching it once, doing it once may not be enough for you guys. So the key is to do a lot of perfect practice, okay? This is Mr. Ainsworth, and I'll see you in my next lesson. See you then.